Now that we've reviewed our file roles, let's go ahead and hop into our document templates. We'll want to head down to our hammer icon, select templates, and then select document templates. Here, you'll probably see a set number of document templates that are already preloaded into your account. I definitely suggest clicking on these and double checking what we already have set up. That way you know what will populate on those intake forms as you get to that step. If you need to add in a new template, we're going to go ahead and select add new and then enter in our name. Today, I'm just going to go ahead and say Hannah's documents and say submit. That's going to open up that document template for us. At the top, I'm going to be able to add in my folder. So let's just going to say, this is my contract folder. We'll go ahead and say add folder. And it's going to add that folder to the top. To add on those placeholders, we're going to select where it says plus file, and that's going to allow me to add in the name of it. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is A. We'll go ahead and say B, and we'll go ahead and say C to add on those specific placeholders. From here, I have a couple different buttons that I can update. I can either update the color of this particular placeholder. I can also toggle the notes if I need to add on a note for this placeholder. I can update the different. I can select this particular document if I need to move the file or delete it. I can also update the priority, add in any more notes. This is where I would see the number of notes. I can say that this document is automatically missing. I've got a broker signed button that shows up as well. I can exclude this document, and then we get into some of the custom document file buttons that I have here. We can also set the file role if we need to. So where it says A, maybe this is actually my addendum. If I click on this dropdown and I select one of my addendums, what I want you to take notice is that it renamed that particular placeholder. This is the setting that I have enabled in the back end. That way, when I have that file role associated, I know for a fact that this is going to be renaming the file. And that way it gets automatically attached to my different email templates or populate the different things that I need for this particular condition. Below, I can click on B. Let's go ahead and say that this is our purchase. We'll go ahead and say it's the buyer signed purchase agreement. If you notice, it automatically put it in alphabetical order as well. Again, this is a setting in our backend. We'll go ahead and take a look at where that is once we're done reviewing our placeholders. Here, I'll go ahead and say that this is one of my disclosures. Go ahead and say it's the seller disclosure. If you need to make an update to the file buttons that are currently here, we can select file buttons, and it's going to show you the file buttons that we currently have. File buttons are a great way to have that visual aid to know where you're at with this particular file. You can have different ones, for example, like uploaded to compliance, approved by compliance, if we're missing initials, if it needs correction, if it's associated with a property trigger, which I really like this for our scale plan users, if it was submitted to compliance, or if it was not needed. We also have the ability to say, what happens when we toggle it to fully executed? Do we want certain buttons to automatically turn green, or maybe we want them to turn purple? Maybe we want to go them to turn gray. If we turn off that fully executed button, what do we want to turn on next? For example, right now I have it said that I want that NC to pop up, which means for me, needs correction. Feel free to update and edit the file buttons as you need. You may be using all of them. You may not need all of them. It depends on your certain use case. Now let's go ahead and take a look at those two settings that I mentioned. The one that's going to automatically rename the file when a file role is associated with it. And we'll take a look at where we can turn on or turn off the different broker signature that's showing up here. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of my template editor. We're going to scroll down to our gear icon underneath settings, and we're going to go down to our global settings. Once we're in our global settings, we'll scroll all the way down to our defaults. Once we're under our defaults, we're going to look for this particular setting called renaming the main file. Here, this is where we're saying, yes, when I apply a file role, I want it to rename the main file. I have it set up that my main file is going to be renamed, but my additional files are not going to be renamed. The way that this is intended to work is that if I upload a document into a placeholder and it's only been signed by the buyer, and I indicate with my file roles that this is the addendum 1 signed by the buyer, when I upload that next file that's fully executed, what I can do is I can say, well, this is the fully executed file. It's going to take that main file and pop it into the additional file. And to make it easier for myself, I want it to keep the name that it was, which said BS for buyer sign. On the opposite side, Down second from the bottom, we have our broker signed button. If you guys are not tracking those brokers or tracking the broker signature, you can go ahead and say hide button, and this is going to hide it from your properties. As you can see in my case, I could still see it on my document templates if I needed it, but when we talk about it being on a property, it's going to hide that button.